Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Dustin, coming to you with what I hope to be the first of many midweek videos to offer you support in your life and in your faith. If you're anything like me, there's been times in your life where you've really struggled with just the concept of having faith, especially when circumstances in your life get difficult. I can't tell you how many times in my own life, when the circumstances have been very bleak, that faith seemed actually really difficult to come by. I would ask, why don't I have very much faith in God right now in this moment? Or where does faith come from? Or how can I grow more faith? Well, in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 14, we see an incredible description of just where our faith comes from and how it can be grown. In verses 22 through 33, we see this account of Jesus who's just fed the multitudes and he's just sent the disciples out ahead of him in a boat. He comes walking past them on the water in the middle of the night when the waves are crashing and the wind is roaring. And understandably, they're frightened. They think this is a ghost walking past them, but when they come to their senses, Peter realizes it's Jesus and he says, "Lord, call me out there with you. I want to walk with you." And Jesus says, "Well, yeah, come on." Now, at first, everything's going well, but then Peter's gaze, as it so often happens in our life, shifts from Jesus to the very frightening circumstances that surround him, and he begins to sink. Now, Jesus, in his goodness and in his grace, reaches out and rescues Peter, and he lets Peter know just what it was that caused him to sink. Jesus doesn't criticize Peter for his lack of nautical prowess. He doesn't condemn him that he should know how to walk on water by this point in life. No, instead, he reveals something else. Jesus says, "You're a man of little faith." Jesus is teaching Peter and you and I in this moment that it's not the greatness of our circumstances that causes us to sink, it's the smallness of our faith. Now that's a pretty remarkable thing for Jesus to say to someone like Peter. In the end, we come to find out that Peter was a person of a very robust faith. So what happened? Where did his faith come from? Well, I've come to the sobering reality that faith comes at a very expensive cost. A couple years ago, I started praying this prayer night after night. "God, would you give me more faith?" And that seems like a pretty harmless prayer to pray, right? Well, not so much. Because within a few weeks, both my wife Jamie and I became incredibly sick, and it led us on a journey of nearly 2 years of living in perpetual misery and agony and anxiety of wondering why the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with us, why we couldn't feel better. And in the midst of that storm, God revealed something to me. He revealed that he was beginning to answer that prayer that I'd been praying night after night. He was starting to grow my faith. You see, I had anticipated when I was praying that prayer that God would just maybe sprinkle in faith like a chef seasons a dish. But that's not how faith works. You see, faith is a byproduct. Faith is a byproduct of being rescued. Faith is a byproduct of being rescued by Jesus. Now that sounds fine in and of itself. But the reality is that in order to be rescued by someone, it means that we have to be rescued from something. It means that we must be placed in harm's way. It means that we are going to encounter frightening storms in our lives. But the good news is that the storm obeys Jesus. The good news is that Jesus treads upon the waves. The good news is that Jesus will not leave us abandoned out to sea to sink in our circumstances. Instead, he's faithful to reach out and grab us even when it feels we're up to our neck. And it's there in that moment that our faith is found and that it begins to grow. So no matter what circumstance you're in right now, I encourage you to shift your gaze to Jesus and trust him, knowing that no matter how difficult the storm is right in this moment, he is growing your faith. So I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for your time. If this video was helpful at all to you, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment, like it, share it, let your friends know about it, but we'll see you next week.
And help me to stay.